Welcome to our Common Sense channel. Today's topic is, do Black people have a culture? Here's a new culture to consider. As usual with me, I have Devin Morgan, who is a writer and researcher. Two of his books are Demystifying Cancer and the World's Common Sense Challenges. They are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or directly using the email address in the description. So greetings, Brother Devin.
Greetings, Brother Taraka.
Now, Brother Devin, do we have a culture? How would you describe Black culture?
Firstly, I think we should let the late Dr. Amos Wilson explain what culture is. Until I heard him speak of it, I had limited understanding of what culture is. So let listen to Dr. Amos Wilson.
Looking at the question, what is culture? Horton and Hunt said from their life experiences, a group develops a set of rules and procedures for meeting their needs. The set of rules and procedures, together with a supporting set of ideas and values, is called a culture. To a great extent, you see, a culture involves a set of rules and a procedure for meeting needs. And this is the thing we have to keep in mind. You don't have a culture just to have a culture. And you don't claim a culture just because it's a culture or just because it's African. The ultimate thing that culture must do is solve problems. That's why people evolve a culture. That's why culture comes into existence as a way of what? Solving problems and meeting needs. That's why, at a certain point, when a culture no longer meets the needs of a people or solves the problem confronting a people, that culture must be transformed. There's nothing sacred about holding a culture in the face of, new events and new changes. Unless, of course, you're free to do that if you're willing also to accept suicide or death. And you have that right to that choice. I tell people, we have the right to say, look, we're going to hold on to this culture even if it kills us. But we should be what? Very conscious of our decision. We should not be holding on to it out of a misunderstanding of what culture is supposed to do. Ultimately, culture is supposed to solve problems.
Now, based on what Dr. Wilson is saying, culture is a navigation system or sets of rules to solve problems. Do we have such a system?
Well, if we do, it's not working very well because despite the amount of talent and resources Africa and other Black countries have, we are not competing with any of the other groups such as Asians, Europeans, and Indians, etc. And those of us who live in countries such as America and the UK, where we have tremendous spending power, we are most dependent on others to supply most of the goods and services we need or desire in our neighborhoods. And that's not good.
True. So how do we develop a culture that will enable us to correct such weaknesses?
Well, let me first say we had great cultures for thousands of years before enslavement. Now, based on observation, to fix this, there are two things we have to take into account. Number one, cultures were not developed overnight. It took time. And it's hard to change adults. So our best strategy is to program future generations into a new way of living. That is, a culture that will empower us and solve our problems. And the best way is to design a school system to do it. One powerful aspect of the education system we'll have to instill, is to instill the love of reading into future generations. So that they will have a love for it when they become adults. Currently, about 5% of the world's people are dedicated readers. Knowledge is at least potential power. What if we develop a culture where we are all great readers, or at least the majority of us? How powerful that will make us currently?
So Dr. Wilson was saying that culture is not set in stone. So these would be very powerful adjustments. What sort of business culture do you recommend we adopt?
The first thing I'd want to sell young adults on is to practice generational wealth. I mean, that could even come from the government to promote this idea anyway. Now, the biggest expense that a young person starting out will go through, have to endure, is to get on the property ladder right now. And it's a 25 years commitment mortgage usually. So the generational wealth want to circumvent this by the parent endeavor for the child to start with, or the young adult to start with owning all of the owner property, so that they can start, they don't have to commit to 25 years, they can start growing their wealth in other ways, such as investments, etc. So we don't have a situation each generation start from the same position. So no growth take place. For a more organized business culture, our governments need to embrace and fund the teaching of technological developments, entrepreneurship, internet market, and investments. We need governments that will provide an open door for our inventions. Africa, with its resources, should be able to fund this. Black people are responsible for many modern inventions that are responsible for much of the development and wealth of industrialized countries. This would have a great impact on our development if we were reaping the benefits of a lot of these inventions that are being mined by the industrialized countries. They are the one benefiting, really. We will not grow as a people if we maintain a system where other people reap our talents and supply our goods and services. Now, all the evidence point to us having a knack for technology. Here is an example of a brother from Zimbabwe who designs cars and television that convert radio frequency into energy. That's what powers it, believe it or not. But here's the video as proof.
A brief trip into the future with inventor Maxwell Chikumbutso. He's claiming a scientific breakthrough with this green energy technology, an electric car which he says converts radio frequencies into energy.
The powertrain, we did it in-house, which makes it the first electric vehicle in the world that drives without needing recharging systems. On the greener power off-grid machine, it's very unique. For the first time, energy is being generated using a radio frequency and without moving paths.
Chikumbutso is not the typical scientist. He dropped out of school aged 14 and says he's developed his blueprints through research and visions from God. A showroom in Harare showcases his prototypes. A helicopter that operates using any one of the 5 fuels, including paraffin, a drone and a household transformer that he says can multiply power 100-fold. But he says breaking his disruptive technology into the world has not been easy. He's failed to patent his work.
That's why we end up finding nuclear scientists, electromagnetic professors, so that they can assist us on the patent process. But as you are aware that in patents, anything that violates the laws of physics is not an industrial applicable solution. They classify it as a perpetual motion device.
Luigi Kupenala, a South African-based Angolan businessman, has poured millions into the project, but now believes it's time to commercialize. He says the Angolan government and a Brazil private energy player have signed up to buy some of their products, but that other investors don't generally believe anything credible can come out of Africa.
Now, here is a different example.
Jamaicans are really talented.
How long are you make it?
Yes, man.
And how long you have it now?
From 2020.
2020, you cannot walk.
No.
Okay.
Whoa. That's the reason why I make it, you know.
I respect you. And the idea you come up with.
Yeah, man.
And it's better for you. Because I respect it because we are looking at it, we never seen nothing like that yet. I was a talented because before we even see you, we are talking about bicycle.
Alright, watch you now. I'm putting the steer with you now.
Okay.
How about reverse stay now?
Wait there.
You want to reverse?
Yes, man.
This is so...
How with the blows dance? Hold on.
Whoa.
Respect me, General.
Now, whether we accept it or not, we live in a world where all races or groups of people look out for their interests except us. So we need a strong social culture to solve this weakness.
So, could you explain social culture to our audience?
Social culture includes shared practices, values, norms, and behaviors common to the members of a society. Miriam Makeba, the late great Miriam Makeba, singer and civil rights activist, mentioned a powerful aspect of this culture in an episode of The Cosby Show. Here she is talking about her culture in her native South Africa.
So you see, you're really not alone. Yes, I am. I only have one daddy, and he's leaving. In my culture, we do not have a word for alone. It simply does not exist. Everyone in the community is family. That means everyone is responsible for everyone else.
If we recapture the culture Miriam Makeba speaks of, we will be able to compete because we will have race pride and therefore we will get rid of individualism, which is a proper retardation towards growth. We have to indoctrinate future generations into this culture. This will be easy because all we have to do is to draw their attention to the fact that all other races work as a team and we are not invited. We therefore stand no chance if we turn up at this team game as a bunch of individuals. Because we can't join their team basically. They're not going to accept us.
So, have you got any other example of a strong African social culture?
Yes, drawing from history, the author Cursor Graves, writing in a book called The Bible of Bibles in 1870, wrote, quote, Dr. Livingstone, a missionary, speaking of some of the African tribes he encountered in his travels, says, quote, the inhabitants have many wise laws and political institutions, which would not discredit any nation in Europe. They are not a warlike people, but appear to hold martial achievements in great contemporary. Basically mean that they hate warmongers. They have such a nice sense of justice and equity that they will by no means make any encroachment on the territory of their neighbors. Their dealings with each other are characterized by mutual confidence, which Christians would do well to imitate. No man is afraid of being cheated. No precautions are used to prevent theft and robbery, and yet no robbery are committed. Their goods to be sold are stored in an open bazaar, left without any attendance, and the purchaser fixes his own price and leaves what he considered a fair equivalent in its stead, and all parties are satisfied. Amazing. It would seem then that while in Christian countries it requires two to make a bargain, in heathen countries it requires but one. End of quote. Absolutely amazing.
Wow. So, this is an amazing contrast and how we have changed since the days of enslavement.
Yeah, can you imagine how powerful we would be if we lived like the examples described by Mary Makeba and Dr. Livingstone?
Boy, we would indeed be powerful.
Okay, there is one more major cultural adjustment we need to make that would make us have the most powerful culture. We reject it's a man's world and replace it with it's a man and woman's world. The global system of sexism robs us of the full power of human capability. At a minimum, it reduces access to at least half the brain power available. At maximum, if women who don't feel compelled to act tough had an equal say in the running of this world, the world would benefit from having fewer wars. In the current system, women have to act like men to gain power. She has to be the Iron Lady. Usually, she cannot bring the balance of the feminine energy and gain power. Now, finally, this is a brief outline of some of the cultural transformations we need. A lot more will be added when we get together to discuss and design it. And in the process of implementing it, it will be even better. Okay, that's it for now, folks. Please help the channel grow by subscribing, like, share this video, and leave a comment or ask a question. And I'll see you next week.
So until next week, it's the same from me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video, and also leave a comment.